This episode is brought to you by the shows of the You Run Podcast Network, all available at yourunpodcast.com. Whether it's true crime or film reviews, even TV series deep dives, the You Run Podcast Network has you covered. So go and check out yourunpodcast.com today. Mark, this week, given the movie, I decided I would have a look at some recent deaths near me and see if I could find anything that was interesting along the lines of something you may find in a body bag. I found a man aged 35 was smothered to death by a pair of goth chicks' breasts. The coroner reports there was no sign of a struggle.
At what point in your life do you feel it necessary to read the obituaries?
I just at the age I am now. I'm at that age now where papers is like I read papers now. I've reached that age.
In all fairness, if that's a true story, it sounds like a good way to go out.
It's clearly not true, but however, that is the way I want to go.
You want to die tonight?
The dad jokes you tell sets the scene. I hang on every word lost in the screen. Your passion for fear is contagious enough. You make me believe in Marc's overblown roundups. You run podcasts for a movie review, unveiling facts and playing games too. Your words paint pictures of darkness and dread, leaving me grinning long after I fled. But
Hello and welcome to the You Run Podcast Horror Movie Review. My name is Scott.
My name is Marc.
And we have both had a week from hell. So those of you who don't know, we record on a Friday. We're both tired. We're both a little bit irritable. We've both had a drink. And we're about to talk about a movie. Yeah, me too. We're about to talk about a movie that I'm going to terrorize Marc throughout. You can get in touch with this interactive horror show really easily. All you need to do is send us an email, yourunpodcast@gmail.com. You can also send us a voicemail on Instagram and X by going to DM, holding the microphone button down, record it, and we'll play it on the air. We have games, we have features, we have lots. So we have a new feature on this episode, and that new feature was an absolute flop, but we'll get to it later.
Do you know what? I actually checked, and there didn't seem to be a lot of interaction for
it. there was no interaction for it whatsoever.
I know, and I felt like I should chime in as well. And I was like, no, don't be that guy. This is your show. Don't get involved. Leave it to the people.
The thing is, though, it's a good feature, and when we get to it, I'll explain why I think it failed, and I think it's all to do with the movie.
Yeah.
You need to go and follow us on social media. We're at You Run Podcast on Instagram. Marc is also on Instagram. He is Reviews from the Crypt or VHS from the Crypt. So
be sure to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already.
Also, if you're watching the remastered version of this on YouTube, make sure you hit like, comment, and subscribe. Do all the really cool things on there that help us grow on YouTube. This episode will work the same way every episode works. We're going to give you a brief synopsis of the movie. We're going to tell you what we liked, what we didn't like. It is really spoiler heavy. If you've not seen this movie, don't listen. Oh, fuck. We've lost everyone. No one's seen this movie.
Which is a shame. Which is a massive shame. It really is.
How did this fly under the radar as much as it did? Like, I was aware of this movie, but this was a first watch for me. Like, I don't know why it's not as popular as, say, Tales from the Crypt or Creepshow, because it's on a par with both of those.
I think it's better than both of those. I'll be honest with you. I don't know why it flopped as much as it did. I don't know whether it got the right marketing behind it. I've tried to buy this movie on VHS, and it's an extremely rare VHS to obtain and very expensive if you do manage to come across a copy of it. I'm dying to get it in my collection, but I don't know. I don't know why, but I feel like this sort of set what came after it with Masters of Horror. I feel like this was a stepping stone for Masters of Horror, but the thing is, Masters of Horror took it in a much darker tone. But I prefer this. I prefer the light-hearted nature that comes with it. Granted, some of the stories don't necessarily work for me, but the initial overarching tie together with John Carpenter in the morgue works perfect for me. And I think that's a fantastic setup, because each week you could, I say each week because I'm referring to it as a TV show, because I feel like this would work better as a format in a TV show. And I think it would work better. I feel like it would work better in a TV show format more than Tales from the Crypt does. And as much as I like the Crypt Keeper and the whole setup that they have with him, you have endless possibilities with John Carpenter as a coroner pulling out various body bags, and each one's a different tale to tell regarding the dead body that it comes from. So I don't know. I think this is lightning in a bottle, and I'm surprised it didn't take off in a much bigger way, really.
Yeah, so am I. So this is a mortician takes us through 3 chilling tales of death and murder, a serial killer at gas station, a follically challenged man who grows more hair than he bargained for, and evidence that Luke Skywalker had more than just his hand replaced as he adopts the eye of a serial rapist and murderer. For those of you who have no idea what this is, like I didn't a couple of days ago, this is John Carpenter's Body Bags, which not only is it a great movie, it is definitive proof that Halloween should have been a fucking anthology.
I knew you were going to go there, and I don't know why, but I kind of pre-prepared myself for you being a knob tonight.
Put them in a body bag!
I mean, like I said, these we've changed the format of the show now. We don't run through the plot, but I think given that this is an anthology this week, we're going to have some sort of structure, and we're going to have to break it down story by story, which in turn is going to give us some sort of progressional narrative. However, we won't run through each episode's plot. We will dissect each episode as a episode 1, episode 2, episode 3. I think that's the only way we can do it, really.
Yeah, that makes sense. Before we dissect any of that, I want to talk about John Carpenter. John Carpenter in this had so much fun. This is just John Carpenter in some goofy makeup, fucking around and being a dickhead for an hour. It's so good.
Yeah. I wonder, do you think did he write this? Do you think he wrote those segments? I know he's credited as a writer, but I'm not sure if he's the whole writer of it.
I'm not sure. I'd like to think because like when I see John Carpenter, especially now he's old John Carpenter, he comes across as a really serious, self-righteous, he's a bit of a dickhead. But in
I've always thought that about John Carpenter. I've said it on previous episodes on this show that I don't think he's a particularly nice guy. And he's very fleeting with his opinions.
Yeah, but in this movie, he comes across like a really fun, happy person to be around. This is like John Carpenter before Halloween corrupted him beyond repair.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, you've got to understand he's playing a role, isn't he? I imagine he reverts back to his normal, arrogant, self-righteous self once the director shouts cut, even though he is the director.
Like, the best bit about this is where he's explaining that everybody's got a story to tell, and he's going around and he's like checking the toe taste. Natural causes. Natural causes. Heart attack. Fuck, it's all boring. And then he gets like, it's the body bag. The body bags is where all the stories are. And as he unzips the body bag, that's when we go into the first story. But all of the segments with John Carpenter it's very much like Creepshow, where the comic book strip ties everything together. John Carpenter takes that role, and I think he does. He's the standout of this entire thing for me.
Definitely. And again, I would like to see him in front of the camera a little bit more. I wish he had have done more of that throughout his career, because he is very charismatic when he's doing so. Like, he's hilarious in this. Like, some of the one-liners he has, some of the really dark humor that he portrays when he's telling these stories and stuff. And like when he opens the 2 cabinets and it's the husband and wife, but the heads are swapped around and they're both being decapitated. Like that. Yeah. It's like very slapstick humor, but it works really well in the dark tone that it's set in throughout. And I really like these segments. And again, I already mentioned earlier, I think that this whole idea of the mortuary and each body having a different story to tell is the perfect setup for an endless opportunity of movies or TV shows to come from it, which is why it's such a disappointment that this bombed as heavily as it did, because it's a fantastic sort of idea.
Yeah, it is. I mean, the first story we get is the gas station. And I'm going to say it now, so it's out of the way. The gas station is Halloween 1978 set in a gas station.
Right. And I knew you were going to be this guy. I don't understand why. This is the best of the three. And I always love this. And I can quite happily put body bags on and watch the first segment and turn the rest of it off. And like know that this is the best thing about it.
The only thing that's missing from this segment is this.
That's a funky little Busta Rhymes remix, that isn't it? I like that.
Do you like that? It is actually a Busta Rhymes remix as well.
No, it's not.
It is Halloween Resurrection, the best Halloween.
That's fuck off. Yeah. I mean, the thing that I like the most about the first segment, the gas station, is how drenched in slasher sort of stereotypes it is. You know, you have this who's done it kind of element and approach to it, and you have the twists and the turns, and I mean, it's just drenched in slasher lore. Everything about it is the way it's set up, the way it progresses, the way it ends. And for me, as a slasher fan, this is what I seek out. I think the cast is really, really solid throughout in this segment as well. You get loads of cool cameos from Wes Craven. The guy who is the homeless man, I don't know who he is, but I feel like he is somebody of importance. And considering how many cameos throughout this movie there is, he's the one person who, like, when he came on, I was like, I don't know who you are, but I feel like I should know who you are.
See, I like the homeless guy. He's the only pure character in this segment. So you've got a woman who's just started at the gas station, and her acting's bad. It's not great. And then it's just various different people coming up to the kiosk to get sort of the gas, and everyone who comes up is a creep, a weirdo, or a loser. The only person who's not is the homeless guy. It's the only nice character.
Yeah, but the guy from American Werewolf in London, he's not a creep.
You say he's not a creep, but he heavily flirts. I don't know. I found him a bit.
When I was to be honest, when I was watching it, I was like, "Yeah, you're too old to be flirting with this college student."
Yeah, he was like, "Oh well, maybe when you're not on campus, you could come and get a drink with me, and you could help me get my frame out of the car so I can walk because I'm that much older than you." That's the thing.
I think he was. I think the problem with him is he was terribly miscast, and I think like they wanted him in here for cameo purposes, but ideally that should have gone to a younger actor for it to be more suited to the story.
Wes Craven's great. Like Wes Craven, every time Wes Craven's on camera, he's just gold. And this, he's like, oh yeah, just need to fill up. And he doesn't play creepy or anything. He's not weird, but because it's Wes Craven, you instantly go, you're creeping me out. I don't like it.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I don't know. I don't understand what your dislike is with this particular segment, because for me, everything just seems to flow so naturally and so perfectly.
Yeah, I don't dislike it. It's just, it is very much the same beat for beat style that Halloween is shot, even to the way that the camera is used, and like they do some panning shots across the car park, and like you see things from the POV. It's very much John Carpenter went, I made that Halloween movie, didn't I? That was good. I'm going to direct this segment exactly the same way I directed that. And honestly, it just felt like a segment from Halloween. And then when they threw
that's why I liked it so much.
Yeah, like they throw in like there's been a murder in Haddonfield, and then someone mentions Haddonfield and the killer in Haddonfield. I just went, oh, stop. Why?
Yeah, no, I loved it. I was all for it. I'll be honest with you. I thought it was great. And you mentioned earlier about the POV as well, and I think that's a cool use of Carpenter's. And I feel like it was a nod. I feel like he was respecting what made him so famous in the first place. And like, there's a cool shot of I don't think it's Wes Craven. It might be Wes Craven, the character who is doing it. But anyway, the girl in the gas station, she sat down on the table in the till, and she's like speaking through the screen as they do. But you kind of, every time it bounces back between her and the guy who's at the till, you get the sort of camera shifts angle. So you get it from an up point when they're stood outside looking, and then as it pans back into her, you get it from a low level angle. Really cool. And you kind of feel like you're bouncing between the two people more than you would just watching it on a screen. It feels more like immersive, if you will, before we had the VR experience that we have nowadays.
Yeah, I want to talk a little bit about her because she is stupid. So she gets there,
Yes.
she's set up, she's given the keys. Guy comes in, he pays for his fuel, and this is the old guy who flirts with her way too much. Then when he leaves his credit card. And she's already been told that when she goes out, if she goes out and the door closes, it locks automatically. So she goes out and chases him. The door locks. She goes back and can't get
Have I
in.
done a good job? Have I done a good job?
No, you haven't, sir.
She was so stupid. And like, again, this is something that is very tropey. It plays on the final girl, not that clever trope.
In a
And
way, but
she's-
I kind of feel like it's her first day on the job. It was an easy mistake to make. And again,
you
like they
ever
do a call back to that because she leaves the room the second time later on. He's like, oh shit, the keys. And she doesn't leave without the keys because she knows she's made that mistake earlier on. So she's a lot more Sidney Prescott than she is anything else.
Jamie Lee Curtis, you know you wanted to say it.
I didn't, and I held back from saying it, and I'm not going to do it on air because you keep sound bites, and I'm not going to let you hold that against me.
Do you know, I was thinking the other day, I need to trawl back through some old episodes and dig out some sound bites of you. I've not had a good sound bite of you for ages. Last good sound bite I had of you was my Dick's erect.
Mate, honestly, if you go back to some of those older episodes, you would get gold. It wouldn't take you long to dig for it either.
No, it really wouldn't. I do like the killer in this. I like the fact they didn't go with a mask. I was expecting him to have a mask, and I'm pleased they didn't do that.
Yeah,
he's menacing, he's scary, but she takes him like when he attacks her in the little cubicle. She takes him out way too easy. I know she doesn't take him out completely and he gets back up again, but like he comes out after her and he like stumbles and falls on the floor. And I'm like, she didn't hit you that hard.
I know, but the thing about that is I appreciate that because he's not Michael Myers. He's a human. He's a human character. And I think that was something that John Carpenter did purposefully. You know, like he is a human character. Most serial killers are human characters. And if you are a human, it doesn't take a lot. If you get hit in the face with a sledgehammer, it doesn't take a lot to put you down. You know, it's true. More about and I think as us as horror fans have kind of got into that idea of like it's almost impossible to kill somebody because it's a Jason Voorhees or Michael Myers or Freddy Krueger, and that's not the case in real life. And I think this is a more grounded approach to that story, and I appreciated how easily he was dispatched in that instant.
Yeah. Now you've said it like that, I was the guy who sat there and went, "There's only a hammer. What's your problem?" Whereas if it was me, I would never have got up again.
No, you say it back out loud to yourself. You're like, actually, yeah, I don't think I could take a hammer to the face.
Yeah, I might suffer with that. The climax is clever as well. So the setup with the guy forgetting his credit card, and then he comes back and he's evidently the one that saves her. Like, I love all of that setup, and it's a really clever, well put together short horror movie.
Yeah, I mean, we've just described it now as a basic A to B, but realistically, there is a very clever twist within this movie. Like, as she's introduced to there's a worker working behind the kiosk. She comes for her first day on the shift, and even from the off, he doesn't know she's coming. And she's like, "Oh, I'm Annie." He's like, "Annie?" He's like, "Oh, it's my first shift." And then you see immediately his like cog starts. He goes, "Oh yeah, coming in." And as it gets further and further on through the story, it turns out that he's a serial killer. He's killed the attendant who was there before him, put his uniform on, and it all just comes full circle at the end, and it's really, really cool. And you get the Sam Raimi nod where he's got his employee of the month picture on his desk, and it turns out he's killed Sam Raimi and took his uniform. And I think this works really well, and I think this is a story out of the three as well, especially, is one of them that could be stretched out and buffed out to a 90-minute story. And
they've done that.
Still just as engaging.
They've done it
no, they
already.
didn't.
It was called Halloween.
No, they definitely didn't. I don't know what it is about this gas station setting that I really, really like. There's a film called Splinter, which I adore.
Yes,
and it's like almost like a sci-fi alien sort of thing. And that's set in a gas station, and that is fucking phenomenal. And there was a recent one that came out. I can't remember what it was called now. There's another one that's just come out within the last sort of 5 years where that's set in like a gas station with a serial killer with a mask and stuff. There's something about late night 24-hour gas stations that just terrify me for some reason. I don't know why. I have the same sort of feeling against hospitals as well.
Yeah, see, I would put the gas station thing down to you, like me, when you were younger, spent a lot of time doing night work, and you'd stop in gas stations when they're abandoned. Well, not when they're abandoned, when they're still open. And the only people in there are either people who are working late, like we were coming back from sites, or crazy people.
Yeah. Drifters.
Drifters, hookers, like you name it. The who arrive in late night gas stations at 3 a.m. They're not a nice place to go and have a wander.
No, no, they're not.
I think we should score these individually. So I'm going to give this story 1 3 out of 5. It's good, but it's not great.
Oh, sorry. I thought you were then going to go on to like,
no,
the cinematography and casting and
no. I just literally a score.
Oh, so you mean the story? Not. I thought you was going to be like, so the story was fantastic, and then the casting is this. But you mean like just Act 1?
Yeah, Act 1. I give this
right. Okay, I'm with you now. Act 1 for me is a 5 out of 5. I think it's perfect.
Okay, let's move on to Act 2.
Hey, don't hurt my hair, man.
I feel like there's going to be a lot of jives at me in this one.
What makes you say that?
Hey,
like I was watching this, and when I watched it the first time round, I really enjoyed it. I was like, oh yeah, it's a nice little segment, aliens, rah rah rah. And then when I was watching it this time around for the show, I was like, oh, Scott's going to use this. I feel like I'm going to be the one where you're going to be like, so Mark, how does it feel to lose your hair?
No, I won't, because however, when people see me, they see me from the front, and I have a beautiful head of hair. And at the back, I have a bald spot that is growing, which is why my hair now is longer than it was a year ago, because that bald spot could be covered just by brushing my hair back a little bit.
Oh man, you're all right. You're like 60 now. It's cool. Like you're at an age where it's probably not going to get much worse. I started losing mine when I was like 18.
Really?
Oh yeah. I've been thinning for like a long time.
Did you go at the front? Did you go with like the Dracula hairline first?
No. And the thing is, it's weird, right? Because when I lost my hair when I was younger, it was always really thin growing up, but it was never like weirdly thin. It was just like I had that little patch at the back. And then I've always had a full head of hair. And then when we went into lockdown, I just randomly shaved it. And I have never gone back from that. So I feel like maybe if I grew it now, if I just let it grow back out, I could probably style it in a way that the guy in this segment does. And I could still pull it off as like a decent head of hair. I've just kind of accepted it now. I kind of went through lockdown, shaved it, kind of just got used to the fact that I can cut my own hair and save myself 15 quid a fortnight and just went with it.
I tell you what, we've not discussed this because it's just come up now. But if someone goes and spends £100 in our shop, Mark will grow his hair back out.
I actually will, just out of more of my own morbid curiosity. I would like to know how far, because it's got to that point where when you shave it, it's just shaved and then it grows back. Like if you have your haircut, you have it long on the top and you shave it on the sides. So like the top grows long and the sides get a little bit longer. But when you shave your head, it grows like one of those grass plants where you put seeds in a tight and everything just grows out like this. So after a while, it's like, oh, fucking hell. And then I just shave it again. So out of curiosity, I would like to know how it goes.
Yeah, so someone spend £100 in our shop, and once you've done that, I'll let Mark know, and he can grow it out. We can follow it on Instagram. So this is the story of a guy who is incredibly vain, and he's got no need to be. I don't know. I'm going to take a guess here and say he's in his 50s. And let's say it as it is. This guy's in his 50s. He's dating some hottie in her 20s who's all up in him, loves him, and he's not interested in kissing her, cuddling her, anything like that. All he's worried about is his fucking hair. He needs to get a life.
Yes, he really does. He really does. And I don't know. I'm really conflicted with this segment because there is a lot of elements about it that I love. I love the practical effects of the alien stuff that we see with the hair where it comes to life, and you get like, it's very Jason and the Argonauts stop motion practical effects. You know, I'm a stop motion guy, so seeing this stuff, I was like, that's fantastic. The problem I don't like with this segment in particular is the tone. I don't like it's when you do an anthology and you have the option to play things very straight laced, which we had in Act 1.
Yeah.
And then you go into Act 2 and the content of the story is enough to play it straight laced and be entertaining enough to keep it on parallel to the first act, but then you inject so much humor and I'm going to say Halloween 5 policeman score sound effects. So it's like do, 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 do. It's that kind of jolly, over the top, surreal approach that they take with it. I couldn't get into it. Do you know what I mean? But I did. Which is why it's disappointing, because I do like the concept.
Yeah,
as a whole, it just should have. The tone's just off from the beginning for me.
Yeah, and of the 3 stories, this is the one that is wafer thin, like his hairline. Like, this one is the one that's. I feel like this one was kind of like they had 2 good stories, and they needed a third, and they stuck it in the middle because they knew people would be invested from the first one, and then they lifted it up at the end. Like, this is a real. It's not a dud because it's still quite good, but it's not as strong as the others. The guy who plays the old guy, I'm nearly the same age. The guy in his 50s, like, I didn't find myself bonding with his character in any way. I wanted him to
surreal
die.
because he's a fantastic actor. He is the warden of the prison from Prison Break. Yeah, and he's fucking awesome in Prison Break. Like, he is the best thing about that. So I know he has a potential, and he is a really, really, really famous actor. Like, he is in so much stuff you wouldn't even realize, and he has one of those hair lips that Joaquin Phoenix has.
Yeah.
I don't know why I brought that up. Like, it's a thing. I don't know. I feel like I've just singled the guy out for having that. Then it just came to me, and I felt like it was worth mentioning.
All the best actors have those.
Of course I do. I love this guy, and I just feel like he was very misused. The fact that he signed on to be part of this project, and I feel like they underutilized his talent in this section.
Yeah, they made him look silly.
Great as well. They did make him look silly, and he does it well. Like, yeah, as a jolly and a laughable segment, he portrays it all right, and I think he does a good job of carrying it. But for me to have that transition from such a solid first act of establishing a horror anthology to then go into something that I wouldn't feel too disheartened about having play on daytime TV and my child watching, just felt jarring to me. I was like, this was like something like, it was one of those weird episodes that you'd get in Goosebumps or My Parents Are Aliens or something like that. It'd be one of those like episode of the week kind of things that just didn't land right with adults, but kids would find it hilarious.
Yeah, it's really odd. It's like he's losing his hair and he wants to do something about it. He goes out and buys all different shampoos. I did laugh my ass off where he used the spray on, like the spray paint for his hair. And his girlfriend kissed his head and then ends up with it all over her face. That made me laugh a lot. But
yeah,
he goes to this, like, I don't know, Regain hair growth clinic where they ask him various different questions. When they show him the different hairs he could have, and they get to the one with long hair, and like, this is the stallion. Like, I laughed my ass off.
It is funny. It is. I don't want to take anything away from it from that, because it is funny and the humor does land. It's just jarring. It's just jarring, man. And
it is the wig. How good is that wig?
Yeah, I'd wear it daily.
So there is some photographic evidence of Marc when he did have the stallion haircut.
I used to rock the stallion haircut.
you need to send me a photo so I can put it in the remastered episode on YouTube.
Yeah, I will. I'll dig them out. I'll dig out the archival footage and send them over to you.
the photograph I have seen of you with your long hair, it's very much like a Vidal Sassoon advert. I'm just waiting for you to like whip it and go, because he's worth it.
I think the thing is, do you know what? I'm like with this guy on this episode as well, because if I was a single man, I think I'd probably be more conscious about it and maybe go for a trip to Turkey to get a new fringe. But I'm a married man. I've got kids now. I'm very happy in my life. I don't feel like it defines me anymore like it did when I was trying to woo the ladies back in the day. I don't know. It's weird. It's weird how something so simple can define a person and how they can get so caught up and hung up on it. I don't know. I think I look all right with short hair, so I'm just kind of normalized by it now.
Well, that's a poll for release day. Which is hotter?
No,
men with
don't
hair
do
or
that.
men
Because imagine
without?
if it goes the wrong way, then you're just going to give me serious anxiety about my life for the rest for this day forward.
The reveal in this is a bit anticlimactic. So he does the treatment. He has the super long hair. The girl absolutely loves him, and they have rampant sex again and again and again. Then he feels a bit sick, and then he gets like weird spots and stuff on his face, and he grows hair sort of on his cheeks, and he grows like a weird wispy beard, and he goes
Turn to
back to the
Wolfman.
treatment. Yeah, he goes back to the treatment place, and the reveal is basically they go, "Oh yeah, right. We forgot to tell you, we're aliens. That's not hair. That's like us, and we're eating your brain." Anyway,
Because
nurse,
your
take
vanity was the easiest way to sort of like intercept you or something like that. They say, don't they?
yeah, and then he's like, "Nurse, take him away," and they take him away, and that's the end of the segment. Like it's really drawn out in the bit where he wants his hair. Then he gets his hair, and it's over in like 2 beats. It's like,
Yeah.
like
But
there's so
again, that's
much
why I refer to it as like a Goosebumps style episode, because the horror is not the forefront of the episode. It's the build up, it's the character development, but it's done in such a zany, ridiculous way that the reveal means nothing because nobody's interested by the time we get to it. Like the concept of it alone is really enthralling. Like the only thing that I can refer it to that balances this kind of idea correctly is Killer Clowns from Outer Space.
Yeah.
Like it's a Killer Clowns from Outer Space episode, but there's so much focus on the human interaction that by the time we get to the Killer Clowns, it's just not relevant anymore, and it's so swept under the rug. And I think that was a misguidance on this episode alone. I keep calling them episode, this act, because it has the potential to be something great. Like it has the potential to go darker, and you could do the whole thing where this wasn't so centralized on one particular character, but it was focused upon an entire town. And we follow the POV of the aliens and them intercepting and them interjecting into people and characters. And we see them getting involved and breaking into people's houses. And we have some gruesome kills of them picking out particular people within the town. And then you come to the final climax with the big reveal. I feel like this could have been handled and developed a lot better and a lot stronger than the focus that this episode took, this act took. And what the thing that's annoying about it is this is directed by John Carpenter. So you've got the first act, which is directed by John Carpenter. You get the second act, which is directed by John Carpenter. And the two are very fucking, it's a massive juxtaposition between the two to get from one to the other.
Yeah, and if you're going to compare them quality-wise, like the first act is Halloween, the second act is Ghost of Mars. That's how different these are in tone.
Yeah. Which, to be fair, is probably appropriate for John Carpenter, really, in terms of his cinematography and his credibility.
I know a lot of people love to dick ride John Carpenter, but I'm going to say it now. The man's only made 2 decent movies. He made Halloween and he made The Thing. Everything else is average at best.
At best. Yeah. Hey, mate, I love Halloween. I love Halloween as a franchise. I don't deny it. I'm a fucking Michael Myers fanboy. John Carpenter, on the other hand, he started something great, but he didn't follow through with it. That was taken on by everybody else.
Yeah, to be fair to him, Halloween 3 is amazing. I'll give him that.
Don't go there. I'm saving that for your roundup because I know what you're going to do.
At some point, we need to get Halloween 3 on this show because you and me on a Halloween 3 episode would be a long, drawn-out, heated debate for many hours.
Do you know what the thing is about it? I actually don't think it would be, because I know I could separate the two and I could dissect Halloween 3 and appreciate it and talk about it on a mature, professional level. But you're just a child, man.
100%. That's not a mature episode for me to do. That is,
and that would be your doing, and you know it.
Yeah, I don't even try to deny it. Let's score Act 2. You can score this one first.
I'm going to give this a 2 out of 5.
Okay, we agree on this.
Do I need to like round it up, or do I just need to score it?
No. We'll round up the whole thing at the end. Yeah, 2 out of 5 from me as well. This is below average.
This is 4 roundups from me in an episode is too much to bear for any man.
Could you imagine? I give you a section to round up on every act of the movie. Anyway, moving on to Act 3.
You don't know the power of the dark side.
This act is fantastic on so many levels for me. One, it's got Mark Hamill, and I am a Mark Hamill fanboy. Like everything he's done, he is outstanding. He's great. In this, he's super cheesy. It's a super phoned in performance, and he'd done it just for a paycheck to fill gaps between doing whatever he was doing before and whatever he was going to do after. And that comes
across. What are you talking about? Whatever he did before and whatever he did after. He did Star Wars, and that's it. Oh, sorry. Yeah, then he got behind the microphone and did some really, really cool stuff, which is fair. He did do some really, really cool stuff. But he's done Star Wars. That is his life. Oh, and he had a cameo in Jane Silent Bob Strike Back. But that is Mark Hamill.
The Joker. He voiced the Joker for years.
Voice acting.
Yeah, voice.
Look, like, let's address the elephant in the room. Mark Hamill is not a good actor. This dude is fucking terrible. He is shit in Star Wars. He is shit in this. Voice acting wise, this dude is phenomenal. Like, I am not going to take that away from him. And at the end of this segment where he goes full fucking Norman Bates, brilliant. Like, absolutely fantastic. He wears that like a badge of honor and he executes it flawlessly. But everything before that is, man, I'm like, oh, dude, what are you doing? This is bad.
Do you know, I disagree. And never, ever, ever do I go to Google. But as you just threw shade at one of my favourite actors, I've gone to Google so I can just have a look at what awards he's been nominated for and he's won, because I'm sure there are a lot.
I'm not throwing shade on Mark Hamill. I love the guy. I think he's great, and I think he's a fantastic voice actor. What he does as a Joker and all the rest of the voice acting stuff he's done in his career is phenomenal, and I don't think people can touch it. I loved him in the Child's Play remake. I thought he was the best part about Buddy. Was it called Buddy?
It was Buddy the doll.
Yeah, perfect casting for him in that. But as an actor on screen,
he had 32 award nominations, 26 wins, one of which being a Emmy. A BAFTA. He's won a BAFTA. He's been nominated for countless amounts of awards. He has done.
Not won any of them though, has he? One thing being nominated, it's another thing winging it, though, isn't it?
Nominated for 32, 126. So I'd say he's got a pretty
that's a good ratio. All right, that's a good ratio, to be fair.
To be fair to you, and I will defend you a little bit, most of his nominations have come from his voice acting work.
Most of them are from Razzies.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't mention 20 of the wins were at the Razzies. Who was it? What was it? Sigourney Weaver who went and picked up her Razzie in person?
Possibly, I'm not too sure.
Yeah.
I know Halle Berry did it for Catwoman.
Yeah, Halle Berry did it, and I think Sigourney Weaver got nominated for a Razzie and also turned up on the night to collect it, which is just phenomenal.
Brilliant. Yeah, that's fantastic. I think the thing is, when you're so immersed in Hollywood like you are, in situations like that, you've kind of just gotta, and you've just got to word it and just be like, yeah, that was bad. Fair play. Watch what I do next.
Or just turn up and go, thank you very much for this award. I'm so pleased you all really enjoyed the movie.
Yeah.
Just play like
I'd like to thank my family. I'd like to thank my and just go on and give a fucking 40-minute monologue.
Give a full Oscar speech at the Razzies, thanking them would be amazing. So this segment is a baseball player. and he's a really good baseball player, and then he has a car crash, and it pokes his eye out, and then he's not a very good baseball player anymore. Were eye transplants a thing when this movie came out?
I don't even know if they are now, are they?
I'm sure you can have an eye transplant now.
Are you sure?
Most heavily use of Google in an episode on the You Run podcast ever.
I mean, the thing is, they make it out in this segment that it is like this new age technology, but I just assumed it was a normal thing to transplant an eye. I might be massively wrong. I don't know. The eyes are the window to the soul.
Yeah, you can't transplant the eye, but you can transplant parts of the eye, like the cornea can be transplanted.
Right. Okay.
So, but yeah, I don't know if that was a thing in 1999. But I like this. I like the fact you said the eyes are the windows to the soul, and they very much play on that in this. So he has an eye transplant, and it's the eye of a rapist, serial killing monster. And the eye effects look great, but he starts taking on traits and he starts getting flashes of that guy's life. Like the eye itself looks amazing, like the contact and all the red around it. And the fact his wife won't sleep with him because he's got a creepy eye made me laugh.
Yeah, I did like that bit. But I think as a whole and as a concept, it's a really endearing idea. And I've seen this done quite a lot throughout horror because it's an easy go-to trope in terms of somebody taking on the personality of somebody else and all the rest of it. Off the top of my head, I can't list certain movies that do this, but I have seen it done numerous times. And I think it's an easy go-to. I'll be honest with you. I do think it's an easy go-to, but I think in terms of the idea behind it, I do think this one does do it better than most in terms of how it progresses through the story and how you see the subtle changes throughout him. Because it's that battle, isn't it? It's that battle between yourself and the host. You can get it in alien movies and that kind of whole invasion of the body snatchers thing. You get that battle between the real you and the one that's trying to take over you. So I like how it plays out, and I don't know. It's good. It's good as a concept, but I don't know. Mark Hamill's just shit, man.
He doesn't fight the urge to change very much either. Like you say, there's the battle there, but he like battles it the first time, and then the second time it happens, he like fully embraces it. He's like, yeah, okay, cool. He goes, sees the doctor, and finds out whose eye it is. And then after
he just
that,
becomes that person.
Yeah, he's like, okay, fine, I'm a killer now.
I think that's more down to the fact that this is a 30-minute segment in an anthology, and we have to speed up progression. But yeah, again, this is another one that would be quite well suited to a fleshed out 90-minute story and would still work quite well. There's enough meat on the bones to be able to draw this out.
Yeah, when he's digging the hole in the garden, and his wife's like, "What are you doing?" It's like, I'm digging a hole. So, well, you need to stop. He's like, no, I need to finish it because it's your grave. She's like, what? And then he just attacks her. And also tying someone to a table by their hair is vicious.
The thing that made me laugh about that is when he attacks her after that. Do you know, like, so he's digging her grave. He's like, oh, I'm digging your grave. And she runs away. Mark Hamill is a lot faster of a runner than she is. So as you see him chase her through the house, you can see he's having to slow himself down in order to not immediately catch her. If you go back and watch Body Bags, watch that segment and watch where he chases her into the house, you can see him sort of misstep purposefully not to catch her as he leaves the garden. It's very funny.
I really like this section. I think this is the best section of the bunch. It entertained me on many levels. I liked the way they played with the eyes of the window to the soul. I like the switch in his personality from being quite a, hey, I play baseball, I'm a really nice guy, to I'm going to kill you now, and like tying her hair up and like knocking her about a bit. Like that transition I thought was really cool. I really like this one. I can't. It's my favorite.
They set him up as being like the perfect husband at the beginning, and like all the jocks and all the rest of them are mocking him for like, oh, it should be illegal for you to love your husband as much, love your wife as much as you do, and all the rest of it. It is good. It is a good setup, and it is a good narrative, and the story there is all right. Like I could see myself being invested in it. I just think, given the condensed nature of how it progresses, there is too many quick changes between his personality that I feel needed to be more fleshed out and could have been handled a little bit more subtly in order to keep it engaging. It just goes from 0 to 100 too quickly for me, and I don't think that's a fault of the story itself. I just think that's the fault of it being an anthology segment. Um, for me, I don't think it's the weakest of the bunch. I think Hair easily takes the credit for that and wears its crown proudly. But yeah, I don't think it's a patch on Gas Station, I'm afraid.
Okay. Well, let's score this one. I'm going to give this a 4 out of 5.
This is a 3.5 out of 5.
Okay, good scores. Well, let's take a break and then we'll come back and do facts. We'll do our failed feature and then we'll round it up. After this episode, why not check out our Resident Girl and our Resident Gay with the Girl and the Gay podcast. This is a podcast where Jay and Bex break down movies of all genres in a funny, entertaining way with lots of interactive features. So go and check out the Girl and the Gay podcast. Also available on the You Run Podcast Network, Video Tasties, a channel hosted by Gareth. This is the world of VHS like never before. From his extensive collection through to live watch-along parties, deep dives into special features and so much more. If you love VHS and retro videos, this is the place for you. So check out Gareth at yourunpodcast.com along with all the other You Run Podcast Network members. So please go to yourunpodcast.com. Check out the other network members. There are loads of shows there for you to go and check out. While you're there, you can also check out our shop. Click on the button that says shop and buy a t-shirt that says Colonel Cockring. Who do you think you are, Pinhead? But buy that one.
Which I still haven't got.
No, you haven't. Christmas is coming. We tried a new feature this week. It was a hard sell, I think, for a couple of reasons. One, because of the movie. It's not a well-known movie. I think had we done this with something like Seven, people would have been all over this. But also,
I think this needs to come back because it is a great feature. My mind was just going all over the place with it. I had so many.
Yeah, I did as well. So the feature is cover note. So you get a cover note on an episode cover like this here. Zip yourself in tight is the cover note for Body Bags. And all we asked you to do was replace it with your own. We got a few, but I've done one. So I'm going to add mine to this. Body Bags, the Halloween we deserved.
Dude, no, that's terrible. Mismarketing at its finest.
Over on X, we've got Tasha from the Sinister Scoop and also the Ghoulish Gallery. Watch out for formaldehyde leaks. She could have picked an easier word for me to pronounce, but yeah, good one. Pop Culture Reflections. This was really clever, and I had to Google it. And the reason I chose it is because it bugged me and I Googled it. And then I was like, oh, that's really clever. Better hope they use YKK.
What's YKK?
YKK is a brand of zip, an industrial brand of zip used for climbing and hiking gear.
Ah, okay.
Which
the fact that you have to research it makes it even better.
Yeah, this is just
putting in the legwork.
Justin from Pop Culture Reflections. Over on Instagram, Nate Mayer, crack open a cold one.
Cool.
Yeah, like that. And he's a horror movie creator. And finally, AMPFX Studios. Body Bags. Everyone gets their own. Fabulous.
I like that one. I even liked and commented to say how impressed I was by that. I think mine would have been everybody has a story, but it would have been everybody as two separate words, and then maybe hyphenate the word body.
Look at you.
I feel like there should be an applaud sound cue for that. That was fucking good.
Have I got an applaud? Let me see. Hold on.
No, you've already left it too long now. The moment's gone. Like, it was great in the moment.
Do it again. I've got one ready.
Yeah. Everybody has a story.
Hey, don't hurt my hair, man.
That's not the right cue.
We will try this again, but we'll try it with a much more well-known movie, and if it flops, then we'll bin it and we'll bring in something else.
No, we need to keep this because this is good. This is like 3-word review, but use your brain. Like, imagine if you'd have done it with something like Jack Frost. Jack Frost would have been the perfect one to replace the tagline for Jack Frost.
Yeah, we'll
I can't
keep
think
it.
off the top of my head. I'm not that well equipped to do that.
Yeah, we'll keep it. We'll try it again. Let's do some facts. So this movie is riddled with cameos. So you've got John Carpenter obviously plays the coroner. Tobe Hooper plays. He
The coroner.
is he's the other
Actual
morgue worker.
coroner.
Yeah, Wes Craven plays the guy who turns up at the gas station. You've got Sam Raimi, who is the photograph in the gas station. Bill. You've got the guy from American Werewolf in London. He's in this. You mentioned Twiggy before we started recording. She's a failed pop star from the 80s. She's in this.
Yeah, she's Mark Hamill's wife.
Yeah. You've also got Roger Corman, who plays Dr. Bergman in the Eye segment. Yeah, it's just riddled with.
I mean, you've got Debbie Harry, Blondie. She's part of the alien race who's like the nurse. You've got Tom Arnold, who plays Tobe Hooper's coroner worker sidekick. I mean, I could go on. I mean, this is just a pit of cameos throughout. And I reckon there's probably a lot in here that we don't know and haven't seen and aren't credited. But if you actually did some digging and research into, I reckon there's hundreds of people in here that are well known and well established. Maybe not even on the on-screen celebrity star level, but are just like mates of Carpenters within the horror genre, whether they be writers, reviewers, cinematographers, or anything like that. Anybody with notable sort of recognition, you could probably find them within this movie from that era.
Yeah, I think so. One they did want that they didn't get was Clive Barker. He was asked to do a role, but he couldn't because he was busy filming something else. He'd have been cool. I'd like to nod to him. Yeah.
I have to feel as well, the guy who played the Doctor in the Hair segment, I feel like they probably wanted to cast David Bowie in that.
Yeah.
I feel like that was like, when they wrote that, I was like, yeah, that needs to be David Bowie with Debbie Harry as his sidekick. And then they just couldn't get him to sign on the line.
And I can understand why. Like, getting David Bowie to sign on to this is a hard sell. Like this. You said this had worked really well as a TV series. This was made as a pilot episode for a proposed anthology that was going to go on Showtime. And this was going to be in direct competition with Tales from the Crypt. But Showtime watched this and pulled the plug on the entire project.
Insane. I mean, I love
agree.
Tales from the Crypt. I think Tales from the Crypt is great, but there is like, I want to say about 56, if my memory serves me right, episodes of Tales from the Crypt, and I would say at least 20 of them are noteworthy. There's a lot of meat on Tales from the Crypt that isn't very good in the slightest, and the same with Masters of Horror. Masters of Horror is, for those of you who don't know what Masters of Horror is, it's a TV show where each week you'd get famous horror directors such as John Carpenter, Tobe Hooper, Wes Craven. You'd have the guy who directed all from around the globe, different from all around the world. You'd have horror directors come in and do an individual episode. And that's great. I love Masters of Horrors. That ran for like 2, maybe 3 seasons, sort of like 20 episodes a season, an hour long. But again, probably 20% of that full season are substantial enough episodes where people are still talking about them today. There's a lot of bloat that comes with those episodes that isn't very good.
Yeah.
So to see that body bag suffered at the hands of that kind of competition feels disappointing, because I think, like, as I've mentioned time and time again throughout this episode, I think the overarching story of the morgue and John Carpenter being the coroner, you could do it either way, where you had a different celebrity guest playing the corpse.
Yeah.
You could have a different John Doe every week. You could have John Carpenter. You could have Tobe Hooper. You could have, if it was a modern remake, you could have, I can't believe I'm saying his name, David Gordon Green. You know, you could have a different dead person, because the fact that we get the reveal at the end that John Carpenter isn't necessarily the coroner, he's just, in essence, a zombie who's come to life to tell the story, it gives you the opportunity to change out that character each week to present it, like an episode of SNL. You know, you could have had a horror version of SNL in a sense.
And the thing is, the reason Tales from the Crypt was really successful is even when they had a duff episode, they had the Crypt Keeper to tie it all together. It was a bad episode, but the Crypt Keeper was always brilliantly written. He was always hilarious. He always made very inappropriate gags. And in this, that's exactly what that Carpenter character does. He does that role. And I'm amazed they passed up on this, because I think John Carpenter as the mortician going head to head with the Crypt Keeper, that's a great battle. I think it is a missed opportunity.
Have you watched all of the Tales from the Crypt?
Most of them. There's probably one or two I haven't seen. I really like it when there's a festive one, like the Christmas ones are amazing. And the New Year's, the New Year's episodes where he's like there with the New Year's party popper and he's got a Happy New Year hat, and the focus for me of Tales from the Crypt has never been the stories. It's always been the Crypt Keeper. He's what kept me engaged. He's what kept me watching. And if it was a good episode that went with it, that was great. And this movie is very much like that. It was John Carpenter. Like when they were doing the hair segment, I'm going, fucking come on. And I know when this is over, I'm going back to John Carpenter drinking formaldehyde. Like I know I'm getting those gags and that goofy silliness, and that's what I was there for.
Yeah, and I think this would have been leaps and bounds above Tales from the Crypt, because I've downloaded like all 6 or 7 seasons of Tales from the Crypt before, and I thought, I'm going to watch these in sequence, and I'm not just going to focus upon the highlights of the ones that people talk about today, and I'm going to try and watch episode 1, 2, 3, 4. Man, it's a fucking tough watch, I'll be honest with you. It's a really, really difficult watch to try and get through them, because there are so many weak episodes throughout each individual season. And you've got it's American as well, so it's like 22 episodes a season. So over 7 seasons, my maths isn't great, but it's like fucking nearly 200-300 episodes to watch. And you've only probably got maybe 30 solid episodes out of that bunch.
Yeah, I agree. The story of the Eye drew on real life experiences of Mark Hamill and Twiggy, which I thought was really clever. So Mark Hamill in this, he has an accident, he loses his eye. In real life, he had an accident where he had a crashed his car, and he scarred his face badly, which you'll see in the Star Wars movies, where he goes from being very clean, very like no marks, and then he's got scars all over his face, and that was from a car crash. Twiggy is married to a real life baseball player.
Oh, didn't know that. And to be fair, I don't really know who Twiggy is either.
So yeah, I thought that was cool. Roundups. Do you want to go first, or do you want me to go first so you can rebuff my Halloween comments?
I'm going to go first, in the knowledge that I don't spend my whole roundup focusing on your Halloween nonsense. So I'm going to go first, but then I'll come at you after you've done yours.
Okay, fine. I'm ready. Go.
Yeah. Okay. For me, Body Bags is one of those very nostalgic movies that I remember being on as a child. I remember various images throughout of this movie, but then it's not until I've got to my adult life where I picked it up again. I'd be like, oh, that's where I remember that from. That's where I remember this from. And the gas station segment was one of those. I'm in various Facebook groups where I'm like full of like all the horror nerds and all the rest of it. Most of you who listen to this episode are probably in those communities as well. And there's numerous times where people in those groups will like message in and be like, oh, I watched this movie when I was a kid and this and this happens, but I cannot for the life of me find that movie. Body Bags was one of those movies for me, and it was a gas station segment that I remember watching where like I'd gone to stay over at a friend's house as a child. We must have been like 6, 7, and like the older brother and sister were watching a movie, and this was one of the movies they watched. And I kind of tapped out of the gas station segment, but I always vividly remember it in my mind. And it wasn't until I got to an adolescent age where I was like, what was that movie? What was it that terrified me that much as a child? And I went back and watched it, figuring out it was this. It was Body Bags. It's obviously not a terrifying movie, but for some reason, I hold that segment in particular very dear to my heart because of those memories that I have from it. Enough of the nostalgia, and I'll actually get to the roundup now. I think as a whole, as a concept, this works better than most anthology TV series and movies as well. I love anthology movies, as most of you know. I do like how they come together. And what really draws me in more than most is the way they intertwine and the way they connect to each other. I don't just like a story, move on to the next, and then move on to the next. I like it when they all tie together and come full circle. And I think Body Bags finds that middle ground where it doesn't necessarily need to tie each story together, but it has a through narrative in the case of John Carpenter's Morgue story that keeps you engaged and makes perfect logical sense how you can jump from one to the other. I think this makes more sense and more perfect sort of progression than what Tales from the Crypt does, or what Masters of Horror does, or I don't know. I can't think of any other off the top of my head. But I Creepshow as well. Yeah, Creepshow as well. Like, the comic book idea is great, but those segments in between each story where they flip from comic book sort of flashes, it's not as investable as what it is here with Body Bags and John Carpenter's character. And again, I've already mentioned, it doesn't necessarily need to be John Carpenter's character throughout. You could interchange this like an episode of SNL, like it's a host.
Yeah,
it's a host each week. So it's disappointing that this movie didn't get the recognition that I think it deserves. But I also say that knowing that it's not the greatest movie, and I think the fault of that lies with how weak Hair is and how weak the final act is. Had they gone more horror centric with the following two acts, this might have had more traction with audience members. I think as time's gone by and people have picked it up and they've gone on to love it, people hold this in a lot higher regard than they probably did when it came out. But I think conceptually it's perfect. Execution wise, it's nowhere near as good as it should be. It's difficult to score because I hold it in high regard nostalgia wise, but I'm going to say it's a 4.5 out of 5, but I know saying that it probably doesn't deserve that score wholeheartedly. It's a great movie. There's a lot here to enjoy. And I think maybe because of the varied nature of each individual story, somebody might whiz through this and enjoy every single thing on a various different level. But for me, I love the gas station. It's very slasher centric. It's very much what I want from a horror movie, and especially from an anthology horror movie. But the horror comedy segments that follow it didn't land on me the way that they probably should have done. So I think they drag it down substantially. So yeah, what did I say? 3.5?
You said 4.5.
I said 4.5.
Yeah.
Oh, I'll meet in the middle then. I'll say 4. And even then, I still think that's generous.
This was a first watch for me. I had no nostalgic attachment to this whatsoever. I enjoyed it on a first watch. Like the first one, I'd done a lot of eye roll and a lot of, it's Halloween. Oh, it's Halloween. Then when it went into Hair wasn't the best story, but Lisa, who was watching it with me, enjoyed Hair. She found it very, very funny. She thought that was the best segment. And then I for me was perfect. That's a lightning in a bottle story, and getting Mark Hamill to go and do that, like all of that worked for me. I really enjoyed this a lot more than I thought I was going to. So I sat down to watch this and done there's a reason I haven't watched this. I'm sure there's a reason I hadn't watched it. And after I'd finished, I was like, that's great. Why have I not watched this? And I will return to this, but I'll return to this for the Carpenter sections. Those sections of him as the zombie mortician with all the makeup and the gags where he puts an eyeball in his drink of formaldehyde, like all of that is incredible. I really like this, and I genuinely think that this shows the potential for Halloween as an anthology. Like let's take the gas station. No, you huff and puff. Let's take the gas station. Let's say Halloween 2 was the gas station, but in a full movie with a different killer just outside Haddonfield, and then you went into Halloween 3, you would fucking love it. And don't tell me you wouldn't.
No, dog shit. I like it.
You lie.
Terrible idea.
Yeah. But when you look at it that way, like if it had taken that and it's vaguely linked to the first movie, but it's a different story set in that gas station with a different killer, but they're aware of Myers. Like, that is the perfect anthology to follow on from Halloween. And then you go into Halloween 3, where you've got the weird cult and like all of that, and everything ties together. I think it was doable, but I understand why they didn't. I get Michael Myers sells. It's as simple as that.
I'm not one of those people who is like, yeah, Michael Myers Halloween franchise and anthology is dog shit. No, I'm not. I'm all for it. I think Halloween as an anthology series would have been fucking brilliant, especially if they interconnected it like a Marvel Cinematic Universe, where you had the original Halloween, and then you had this as Halloween Part 2 with a different killer. Then you went into Halloween 3, like you said. That would be fucking amazing. I would be all for that. But the fact of the matter is I have a Halloween franchise, and I have it a Michael Myers-centric Halloween franchise, and I fucking love it. So the fact that this could have been anything different is just not appealing to me in any way whatsoever. But I get it. It could be, and it could be great if it wasn't for the rest of the stuff that came after it.
Yeah, I'm going to give this a score. I score this a 4 out of 5, same as you. I really enjoyed this. It had issues, but every movie's got issues. This was held together by the glue of John Carpenter's character. Like, it was great. I will watch this time and time again.
I think the thing is with this, I think we've spoke about like party movies in the past and things that are like perfect background party movies. This is the epitome of what a background party movie is. If you're having a Halloween party and you put body bags on in the background, you have got the perfect night lined up for you. Trick-or-treaters in and out, body bags on in the background. You could drift in and out of what you want to watch and what you don't want to watch. You know, it encapsulates that sort of time in the year. Do you know? And I think it's a great movie for those purposes.
Yeah, I agree completely. Wow, we agree. And scored the same. That's weird. Right, that is it for this episode. We are going to be back next week where we're talking all about bacon. But until then, have a wonderful week. Be good. Be nice to each other. Have a wonderful week, and don't have a week as stressful as mine and Marc has been. And we will see you next time. See you all later.
Cheers, guys. See you next week.
You want to die tonight?
Jokes you tell sets the scene. I hang on every word lost in the screen. Your passion for fear is contagious enough. You make me believe in Marc's overblown roundups. You run podcasts for a movie review, unveiling facts and playing games too. Your words paint pictures of darkness and dread, leaving me grinning long after I fled. But you run podcast, horror movie review, unveiling facts and playing games too.